Hello, so this is going to be on how to use a stick to become aware of your different layers of your energy field. Some people have called this your aura. It's your mind. You can use the stick to stir up the mind to such a degree that you can actually feel it with your physical perceptual system. A lot of the times people can only sense what their mind is doing based off of their emotional cues. And so this field around you is your emotion, is your drive, is your will. It's your compulsion to do something. So like if the field is going strongly in a direction, you will feel emotionally that you want to go that way, even though it's just a current in your outer auric field, in the energy patterns around you. I'll dig into that a little bit more and we'll define energy patterns, not with a conceptual definition, but I will disturb it and I'll say this area, this thing that the stick is interacting with, that's your emotional field, right? And so becoming conscious of your emotional field is obviously good. The other thing that people will often say is like, oh, you're not your emotions, don't worry about that. Like that's the same thing of like, it's actually just a current, right? So you want to be aware of what these currents are doing. You want to see like, and then there's fields outside of the emotional field. And so this is just a big ocean or a big sea of consciousness. Like how people say everything exists in the mind. The body is this inner layer of something in the mind, and then the emotional field, and then your deeper beliefs and thoughts, and then the zeitgeist, and then it extends outward. The reason that it seems like it has these layers of like, oh, this is where my field starts, or this is where mine is the same reason that a whirlpool has boundaries, or the same reason that a wave has boundaries. Like when a wave is coming in, you go, oh, there's the wave. Okay, so where does the wave stop and start? Where is its boundary? And if you try and dig into it, like, I don't know, scientifically or materialistically, you'll be like, oh, the wave has no boundary. It's not even there. It's actually just all this other stuff wanting to do these things. So this is that. And you'll find that when you go with your emotional field, right? If you're not emotionally into spinning a stick, you're not going to do it with this field helping you. If you're not into like studying something, you're not going to do something with this field. Like let's say that you want to learn something. If your greater emotional field isn't flowing towards that material, you won't give the material enough attention to actually learn it. And so that's this emotional skill is you kind of have to figure out like, okay, so like let's say that your emotions are blowing you away from an activity. That's fear. And you go, oh, I can't approach it. And if you're not detached from your fear, you can't push through currents that are pushing you away. And so things that are emanating great power will be emanating a field that causes a quote unquote negative emotional reaction because it's emanating. So any approach towards it is going to generate what most people call a negative emotion, which they go, oh, I don't want to do this, but it's actually the field or the area around them just flowing away from the direction that they've decided to go. So you encounter resistance. When your emotional field is blowing away from the direction you go, you're running into what you call resistance, and that's depression, that's demotivation, that's distraction of like, oh, I'm trying to go that way, but I'm being pushed in all these other directions. That's just the emotional field going back. So this whole arena, the world within which you live is, everything's pushing on this, so there's currents in it, so you're going to experience emotions. Sometimes the current's going to be going that way, sometimes it's going to be going that way. In large, it's like you want to use these currents to your advantage. So you want to, oh, can I ride this? I need to do that. Is there some emotional wave? Like I need to get over there. Can I look around and find, oh, there's an emotional wave, a current or something that I can get into that'll take me into that direction. So like if you want to become intellectually smart, you have to like study. So you need to look around and be like, oh, is there some topic, is there some activity where I'm emotionally driven into that material? And that's just intelligent, right? And it's like, is there you know, that when your larger mind is like looking at things, that your intuition might find an area that's like, oh, that's kind of dangerous, and kind of push you away from it. And so you want to listen to that too, right? So but you don't want to just like, oh, I can't approach. Then if you do that, then you can't. If you're not conscious of what your emotions are, then you can't approach anything that's emanating. You can't approach any of the, like, basically the holy things of creation, any of the things that are emanating or creating creation. As you approach it, it's going to push you away. It's not because it's bad, or it's not because you don't want to go there, or not because of like it's pushing you away or anything like that. It's just because that's the nature of things that emanate. Meanwhile, the poles that are destroyed are inherently kind of like seductive. It's like a whirlpool where you approach it, you go, I want to go into it even more. And so that's kind of like like negative impulses that people have, is like you've approached something in cosmic reality that is inherently destructive, and so it's overall it's an energetic suck. So when your emotional body gets close to it, you're drawn to it. And again, if you don't understand what's going on, you might just go, oh, that's the way I want to go. I want to go that way, and I'm repulsed by everything that is like emanating, and so people are trying to figure this out blind, and that's where they get all sorts of different metaphysics and morality and theology of like, oh, what do you do when you approach that which sucks? What do you do when you approach that which blows? What do you do when you approach, right? So the main thing that you want to do is to just become conscious of this reality, and then once you know what's going on, like this is why it's sucking my emotions in there, because it's a destructive pit. You can go close to these very destructive things, and it's really cool. It's like going to the Grand Canyon or seeing these natural wonders of the world, is to approach these like destructive maws, right? And you can actually learn to like circle around it, and there's a ton of energy there. That's a thing. Is it good or bad? I don't know. It's just an extreme stuff. And then the same thing with if you go into life and you approach the truth, you'll start to experience like massive depression, massive like these things. That's why people that are like deep intellectual or whatever tend to like have a pitfall of depression, because they're attracted to bright objects. So you're attracted towards truth, but when you approach truth, it starts pushing you away, and you want to go towards truth, but your emotional body's going backwards. So if you interpret the emotional body in a moral way, or try and get it of like, oh, this is my emotions, and not seeing it for what it is, you'll be in this paralyzed period where you go, oh, that's the truth, and then I can't get any closer to it. And not only that, I don't even want to. Like you'll emotionally start to feel like you hate the truth, because I mean, that's just because it's blowing the other way. And again, if you wake up to it, you go, ah, there's the truth, and you can get close enough to it, and then just feeling it is it, right? It's pressing, and you can't get. That's the mysteries of creation, are these emanating forces that you really can't reach it. And then nor is like it's emanating. What is it emanating into? Ultimately, it's emanating into the negative pole of destruction. And again, that's where the emotional body wants you to go, but you need to not reach it, because it'll result in death. So using an activity like the stick, if you can just get the thing to start to physically move around, that if you can physically feel your emotional body in these outer auric sheaths consciously, like directedly with the physical body, that's when you can really take do whatever it is that needs to get done. And again, this state of that position is just the state that like really good trained athletes get into. They do the training no matter how it feels. They stay in contact with the truth or the reality of the sport. And so that gives them, emotional freedom. Again, everything that I'm talking about, just like the emotions can be simplified to a current in the world, like a push or a pull. everything that I'm saying, again, can be simplified, and you'll see people just simply naturally making that choice without any of the understanding of it. People, the whole world is something that you are in, that everyone is as naturally and as completely as you see an animal fitted or adapted to its environment, and it just knows how to do what it knows how to do. Like birds just make nests, cats can just jump and hunt and everything. Like a human being, it's definitely possible. A natural human who hasn't been destroyed is, and it's ultimately like the thing to where you're creating these systems and developing understanding in that this way is because like a wave, you has been sucked into a maw of destruction, but you're larger than what has been sucked in so far. So not all of you has been sucked in. So that's this like death process, right? And so there's areas where that hasn't really started. You can't see that it's starting, right? Like at the moment of creation, you're already being sucked in, like you're the whole thing, right? So it's destruction starts at the very beginning. But you can't see it, so everything that is happening looks natural. And so that's natural theology, natural athleticism, natural talent. The same way that some people are just naturally good at running or throwing balls, some people are just naturally good at like theology and mysticism and yoga. And the natural human is and those are these like stars, these magnetic people. Any sort of high performer, the people that are just going crazy deep into it, they are just expressing naturalness. And usually any sort of like intellectual understanding is only a result of like injury and rehabilitation and recovery, and the people into it are kind of like not going to be like the ultra rock stars. It's a therapeutic thing, it's a healing thing. Like this sort of understanding and these sort of practices is yeah, you're attracted to it when you're damaged, right? You're attracted to it when, so what's actually going on with my fluidic mass, if I'm like sensitive and I just really look into it, is that my body, my skeletal structure, the shape of me, is in basically water. It's centered in my center of my center of mass is my water, and my structure is suspended in that, sitting in that. So it's the same. My energetic space is the same as if I was just underwater. It's a small pool, but as I move, the pool moves, so I stay underwater. All of my physical structure is in my body water, and it's like centered in there. Most of it is in there, so it's floating, and so the degree to where the water is flowed, my body structure is floating. And then the field or the medium that my body structure is floating in is my metabolism. All of my life, my breath, everything is existing in that water within which I'm floating. And so that's the truth. So if you feel that, you're in your movement patterns you want to maximize on that. You want to capitalize on being in water. So your swimming is where, I'm not going to pull on something, but swimming is when all my back, everything is a foot. My entire contact point with everything is a foot. So I'm going to be using my back, you don't really want to conceptualize it as like an S pattern, because it's not anything, it's all of it. You're just always pushing on everything. You can overthink it. You can overthink it with a really powerful swimming technique, but ultimately, so it's I'm in that water and I want to push off of everything. And so things that are like, this field is subtle, so it's like, how do I feel it more and more and more? Anything that's rolling or anything that's rotating or anything that behaves like water is going to make your movement patterns more similar to water And since you're moving more similar to water, you'll be able to feel the consciousness field around you or inside of you better. So a stick, if you start it rolling, you know, you find the stick and just find it as a sphere, find it as like a mass of energy, and just roll the energy. And then find a way to make that rolling uninterrupted. And so then I can use my head, my back, the ground, everything is fluid, and I want to cause that rolling of the stick to be happening inside of and moved by the water of my body. And so that lets you you can then start pushing on the stick with rotations of the back, you know, S patterns. Anything you do will influence and push on the stick. And how hard does it push on it with? About as hard as you could push on it with water. So everything in you that's water, so your entire water mass, is pushing on the rotational aspect of the stick. And so when you're doing that, you're pushing on the stick with this surrounding field that I'm talking about. Because the water inside of you, as you connect to it or you start moving with it, that's the same as what people call their energetic sheaths outside of them. And this water is like super dense, but it actually is your consciousness at the same time. So it's like as dense as your awareness. Mechanically, that's about as thick as water, the energetic stuff. And so that's crazy intense. That's as violent and big and as like crazy as a storm or a hurricane or something. Like the mind is like whoa, but at the same time it's also like, see how easily that it can move through itself, like an event in the mind, like a whirlpool or whatever. How easily can it move through still water? It's completely like missable and mixable. So you if you're unconscious, like all of this stuff, even though it's physical, is invisible, and you have whatever belief system, whatever blah blah blah, to just not see the physicality of the mind. And so so that's what people call unconsciousness, and then that becomes invisible. And then that is what people call their thoughts and their emotions and all this other stuff. Is just a label for describing what the invisible aspects of the mind. And another way of saying that is like, this is the aspect of mind from whence I am looking. I'm looking from these vantage points. So if the vantage points from which you're looking from are going to be invisible. And you're only going to see the unconscious aspects of the mind, because you can't see from that. You can't see the vantage point when you're using it. So if you see the emotional body or the energetic vantage point around you, if you see it, that means that you're not using it, or you're not looking from there. And then around that is you go, okay, well, what did I just pick this situation up with? Like, I just coached you into like, maybe you're doing that, and you go, okay, I did it. So like, what are you picking that situation up with? The same as like, if I told you to pick up this stick, you realize, oh, I'm picking up the stick with my body. My hands are grabbing the stick, and that I am grabbing the stick, and that's how I pick it up. With this pattern of moving the stick with the emotional body, what are you grabbing that with? What's causing that pattern to like, it's like here, it's not picked up, and then I can pick it up. What is that being grabbed with? That's the That's the next tier of body after that. It's another deeper aspect. And so if you can find these currents or these situations in life that generate a strong push or a strong impulse in the emotional body or in the mental body, societies, groups, games, motivational schemes, these are all currents in the mind. So if you can find currents that are like very big or very strong, you can do big and intense things. Or if you find currents that are like very reliable and predictable and whatever, you can use them to learn on, or you can maybe harness them with like windmills or hydroelectric dams or solar panels. Like you can see these currents in the mind, and like with ultimately the emanating forces and the destructive forces are completely consistent. And so people that separate from their emotional body, like this is also what science is, right? It lets you separate from your emotional body and study truth. And then as you approach truth, it's gonna make you feel wrong. And so the search is ultimately like an emotionally driven thing, to where you go, oh, my emotions aren't right. I'm not going in the direction that I want. Right? When you feel like you're not going in the direction that you want, people start searching, and that's just, okay, I want to go in this direction. And you experience resistance, and then there's a desire to get away from that resistance so that you just go. And be emotionally aligned, which ultimately leads you like, okay, I'm just going to go, and then you get sucked into the thing. And so there's this kind of like wash cycle. That's that destruction creation loop. Is kind of what people describe as reincarnation. And it's just a description of like how the consciousness is moving. And then whether anything is seen as good or bad is just in the I don't know, you just kind of know. Everyone tells you, and you can kind of judge. You just kind of have to know who's trustworthy and who's not, and then also the same voice or intuition in your heart. Like you just kind of have to know. So there is good and bad, but it's also not that related to creation and destruction. Which is a part, like, let's say that you're, you're a good person with friends and family and all that, and then if you go and make a mistake while you're like surfing giant waves, or you go towards one of these destructive impulses and screw up, that's bad. That's not good, objectively. Like abusing people unnecessarily or against their will, like that's bad. People shouldn't do that. Not pursuing truth or having an incorrect understanding of what's going on. is kind of bad. It's okay to have a simple or a naive or a childlike understanding of what's going on, but you know, if you're tempted to understand anything, like it's definitely good to understand it the most. And so there's like, I don't know. So when you're doing stick stuff like this, I'm not doing it to have a trick or to do anything. I'm just trying to make my emotional body feel physical. And there's just, I don't know, this is kind of a rabbit hole. There's a lot of electrical technology, EMF, different foods, different medical treatments and stuff like that that ultimately have very strong effects on these energetic shells. What's the emotional body? It's altering the chemistry of the water, which is altering the behavior and the properties of the mind. Right? That's what's going on with anything. And then also the same thing if you're altering the behavior of the mind, like the attention, if you're altering the attention patterns using the technology, that's drastically altering the chemistry of the water inside the body. And also, like if you're injecting drugs or substances into the water of the body, it's dramatically affecting the mind around. And so there's a lot of if you start to feel the emotional body physically, then you can start to feel what things are ultimately destructive and what things are creative in the world. And you know, live in such a way that the life of the creative things is seen and utilized, and the receptivity of the destructive things, you know, I would just keep that kind of far away on the edge. Because if you get really possessed by your emotional body, there's a tendency to want to put those easy currents right next to your living situation. So it's like you put all these destructive things in the middle of society, and it just kind of screws everything up, because you want society arranged around the creative things, and then you keep the destructive or the crazy things at the periphery, just so that there's like a nice middle ground sort of living area. Right, and so it's ultimately just common sense. Like you just want to be, you're in the sea of mind, and so you want to be able to swim and to float and to do things, and so that means like feeling and responding to and swimming through and moving through the sea of mind skillfully and intelligently is the best thing to do. And then what's not good to do is to just thrash around unconsciously, taking ignorance and dissatisfaction as sort of the default state. I don't know. So that's how you use a stick to make your emotional body physical, which has a lot of applications in the field of basically learning. A lot of the times, learning or performance. Like if you're going to train or you want to get better, you want to do anything, you absolutely have to have the physicality of your emotional body like behind the thing. You need to be finding what's making waves and figure out how to ride those waves, or figure out how to get into the current at very least of the emotional landscape. And to do that like methodically and scientifically the same way that you would if you were trying to learn how to surf. And so what's going on right now with like a lot of activities is basically people don't even know that they're in water. So it's like if you're going to learn how to surf, you have to be like, oh well, I have to, you know, get away from this area and I need to go to right there where the waves are breaking. I need to go to like right there, and I'm never going to be able to do or learn this activity if I'm in an area where the emotional body isn't engaged correctly. So a lot of people, like if they try and say that like, oh, you're not your emotions, so you don't have to pay attention or have any awareness or understanding of the emotional body, and that's just mental retardation, severe mental retardation. It's like trying to learn to surf on the beach. If you don't acknowledge the essentiality of the emotional body and of the mental body and the whole thing, you have to acknowledge all of it is important, because you have to be in the terrain where it's like popping or going off. The wave has to be happening, the event has to be happening, and it's bigger than you are. So you have to be in the right area. Like you can't learn how to mountain bike in the desert or like on a highway. You can't learn how to mountain bike on a highway. You can't learn martial arts outside of a fight. It's just not possible. And so that's why it's important to understand the emotional body, not so that you can appease it or go with it, but you have to see this entire world, this entire landscape as a terrain, and certain things only happen in certain areas. So, and there's a lot of LARPing going on because you have it on the screen, so you get the idea of it. So a lot of people think that they're training or practicing or learning or doing something, and they can't do it because they're not in the area. The phone is just creating a picture of it. You can't watch surf videos and get on a surfboard in your living room and learn how to surf. You have to go to where the ocean is, and that's true of any activity, intellectual or otherwise. So there's some concepts and terminologies and ways of thinking that it just requires, you have to go to the people. You have to genuinely vibe the people. You can't do this online learning stuff to a certain degree. And all it becomes obvious. You'll see where you can and cannot learn something if you see the emotional body. And so that's listening to your and even when somebody's telling you to like listen to your emotions and all that, they're coming at it from a very unconscious perspective. Instead of saying like, oh, go to where these waves are breaking if you want to surf, they go like, oh, just like listen to your intuition and do the da 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 da. So it's like all that's great and it's kind of functional, but it's a culture of blindness. So, I mean, yeah, in any moment you have the spinning thing, but like, how can I want to be constantly connected to my emotional body So the fluidity of my water has to constantly be making the staff fluidic. If I'm not making the staff fluidic, then it's not attached to my emotional body and my metabolism, my life force, which is in my water. That's why the flow state and water stuff is like absolutely so important, because all of your perception, everything that you can possibly fathom even happening, is happening in your body water. It's in the chemical soup in there. It's an electroplasma. And so everything has to move primarily fluidically, because that's the container within which the complexity is contained. The 10,000 things of perception is all contained in the simplicity of water. So to be in alignment with all that is and all that stuff, it's heavily oriented around and inside of water. The nature of consciousness, the nature of learning, movement, mind, all of that is, all of the container for all of that is water. In a very dumb way, but if you sit there and really look at the self-involuting fractal, you'll see like wow, people have really been overlooking water. Some people tap into it and they go, oh my god, look at water, but people like don't really pay attention to the water wizards for whatever reason. And I think that's ultimately because it's like everyone's looking from this location, so you can't see it. And then when some people shift location and see what everyone can't see because they are, it's tricky. And so that's what you get, like exercise instructors, because it's like you've come up in your head, you're like, I want to go that way, and then somebody's like, yeah, let's go that way. Everybody go that way. Yeah. And then you experience some amount of success because you feel like you're sailing, right? You feel like, oh, I'm finally catching the waves of reality and I'm improving. It's because you're like, your spin instructor's just like, everybody go. This is the most important freaking moment of your entire life. Try as hard as you can. Go! And you feel like, one, like, and so it's, then there's other motivational streams of like, hey, notice this destructive maw within your own heart. Notice this radiant source of energy that we call the sun. Those two things interact with each other somehow, and in certain areas, there's waves, there's wind. People are kite surfing. People have gone underwater very deep. Meters and meters and meters and meters and meters underwater, and even they'll eat the fish down there. They're an apex predator. We can go into the ocean with just a little bit of a, like with a spear, with a stick, and then we're the apex predator of this crazy, crazy environment full of fish and sharks. But it's wild. People can go in there and be the alpha creature. This is the same way that people can go to Africa, you know, you have a gun or whatever, and you're suddenly the alpha animal. It's wild that people can go into water and be the alpha animal, which is basically an indication that water is one of the native environments for humans. Like if we swam like other monkeys do, or like deer do, or anything else like that, we would not be an alpha predator underwater with just some swim fins and a stick. Like even without any gear, if you go into water with a stick, there's nothing that can mess with you. And if the stick is sharpened, you can actually hunt and eat. It just takes a tiny sharpened stick and boom, you can live in the ocean as well as any fish. If you relax into the nature of your being, if you relax into your consciousness, right? we're more adapted to being underwater than we are in the desert, right? If you just relax, and you have to be constantly in your head strategizing, like, when is the water going to come? How do I get these resources? You have to be like working with time. Same with you have to be like working and understanding time in the abstract if you're going to live in Alaska. You have to understand seasons and cycles and just all of this stuff that's not in the moment. But in the water, you can relax and survive as long as it's not too cold. Anyway, if you liked this video, like, subscribe, comment. You can send me Bitcoin money, and I would like to open a stick academy or a trampoline temple, or a school for reading good. I would like to open a school where people read real good. They read books. Or I can consult you if you already have that going on. If you have anything going on, I can come in and make sure that you're not acting under some insane delusion and over complexifying the things you need to do to succeed. I can consult for that, or really anything requiring strong emotional, intellectual, and cosmic awareness. And yeah, mahalo, aloha. May the blessings of Jesus Christ be upon you all for the new year. And may the grace and power of the Eastern Orthodox Church radiate upon you and all things that you love in divine harmony and freedom under the rule of the Logos. Tricked ya.